Do you want to play another survival crafting game?
I have to tell myself I'm not playing a single more. I've decided it's one too many. There's too many zombie games. Look at me. Look at me. No more. I'm not playing it. No. No. No matter how many times he asks.
How's it going? Welcome back to another great video with the majestic host, The Savior. And for some reason, recently we've had a resurgence of survival, crafting, looter shooter, multiplayer type games. Because now we live in a day and age where the AA gaming industry is thriving and the AAA gaming industry is slowly dying. And that's not actually a bad thing. But when we only get looter shooters and survival games, survival crafting games, you do start to wonder, where is the innovation? Well, this title might interest you. It certainly piqued my interest. Now this is called Once Human, okay? And you might be thinking it's just another zombie survival crafting game, but actually this is quite different, okay? It deals with the supernatural, the kind of Stranger Things vibe, the kind of cosmic horror, and that actually hasn't been done in a survival crafting game, as far as I know, and it's pretty cool to actually see that theme done here, and surprisingly it's actually pretty good, and it's got some interesting ideas. And for an early game, okay, that's actually being released, a survival crafting game that isn't coming out, unfinished, that's what really surprised me. This is actually a full finished product, and it's not actually terrible. It's not filled with tons of bugs, there's plenty of content to do, and it's quite interesting for the most part, and the gameplay is pretty tight. So I'm going to get into all of that today, so I do hope you enjoy this Once Human game review, Now do bear in mind that this is based on the early gameplay, okay, not the full final release as of yet, but all of the early access gameplay that I've had hands-on with and other content creators have had hands-on with, so do bear that in mind. But pretty much from day one release, it's going to have all of this content, and it's actually surprisingly a lot. So I'm going to fill you in with all of the information like I do with all of my early reviews. I'm going to go into the positives and the negatives, and I have to say, surprisingly, for an early, survival crafting game that, is in its first year cycle, this is actually very positive. It reminds me of something like The Forest, something that, kind of took the gaming industry by surprise, and the community actually fell in love with it. I don't think it's going to be talked about that much, that's why I wanted to highlight it, but I think it will have a dedicated niche audience, so I'm pretty excited about this. It's kind of a little bit weird, like the genre that it's going for. It's such a weird blend of games as well. It kind of reminds me of Zelda, DayZ, and Remnant from the Ashes, a kind of Souls-like third-person shooter. It's trying to do a lot of different things, so I do hope you enjoy this one. And if you are new, which is highly likely, make sure that you go down below and subscribe to the channel, become a wise one today. I would appreciate it so much. I love this community, I love what we're doing here, I'm passionate about just making content for you guys. If you like gaming analysis and philosophical videos, you're in the right place. I do both of them, and I do a more analytical gaming series called my yearly reviews, where I break it down into different themes and analyze it from different angles. But this is my early review series, so do bear that in mind. But I will get into a lot of detail here, but not so much about the themes and the kind of philosophy aspects of this game, because it's not that deep. But you know what is deep? Yes, that's right. If you subscribe to the Wise One community, don't be like the 99% of dum-dums. Subscribe to this goddamn channel right now. We're growing so fast, and I just love engaging with you guys. I just love what we're doing here. This community is awesome. We're kind. I also do a live streaming show, pretty much randomly, but I try and do every day, early Japanese time, and I've got a nice community there as well, so make sure you join that if you're interested. It's pretty fun, and we just talk about life and gaming, and yeah, it's a good time. And we have to support AA developers, but please do subscribe, support the show by dropping a small donation. I have recently gone full-time on YouTube, so that's the only way I can keep doing this is with your support, so thanks a lot. So let's get into the nitty-gritty, shall we? This lovely survival crafting game, because oh boy, I never get tired of survival crafting games where you gotta hit an imaginary stone for 10 hours and then look outside the window and realize, oh god, I've now become a boomer because I've wasted my entire lifetime just grinding for, you know, resources. It's a great feeling, guys. No, but honestly, this actually respects your time, and I really appreciate that. It's giving me kind of Valheim vibes of quality, okay? Which is surprising to say the least. Not everything is perfect, so don't, you know, expect that. It is still, you know, quite early on, but for this Once Human review, I do want to highlight that I think there is a lot of content here, and if you do like that type of gaming experience and you want a good multiplayer game to sink your teeth into, I actually recommend this more compared to a recent game that I covered that's kind of doing a looter shooter multiplayer experience. This is, to me, a lot more interesting and deserves your attention. So basically, all you need to understand is this world has been corrupted interdimensionally by this kind of unknown force called Stardust that corrupts and changes everything, and that's why you get so many wacky, crazy monsters. And I have to say, I really do like the art style here, and it is a good looking game. Graphically, this is a good looking game, which is pretty rare for this type of experience. And although sometimes the art direction feels a little bit all over the place, I really do like that they are innovating with their creature designs and the aesthetic of the enemies and stuff like that. That to me means a lot. You know, you get these giant spider buses, okay, which kind of reminds me something out of Studio Ghibli, but if he was like high on steroids or something. It's pretty nightmarish stuff, I've got to say, but it's so cool. And then you get these massive moving houses. It's very Lovecraftian, and I really like the design that they went for the enemies. It can be quite scary at times. This certainly is not a scam compared to Days Gone or whatever the hell that game was called. And surprisingly, there is a main story here where you help the faction of the Mayflies and basically trying to stop the corruption of this Stardust energy. And this is everywhere in the world, okay? So for example, because this is a survival crafting game, you do have to worry about your health, your water, your food, all of that stuff, and even your sanity, which is a pretty cool feature. But sometimes you might have to drink, you know, that Stardust, that lovely pungent Stardust water brought to you by Savior 3.0. I'm sure in the future we'll literally see YouTubers shilling a poisonous drink to their audience because we love money. I don't, okay? I'm a real one, don't worry. Kind of reminds me of that Fallout DNA where you drink some water and it's actually contaminated with radiation and you have to watch that. Kind of a similar thing here, but I do like that. I do think that this game is actually really good, mostly for its, you know, gameplay loop and the content here, and the third person shooting actually feels pretty good. The shooting in general, no matter third person or what, it actually feels good, which is surprising. It has a nice weight and feedback to it, and you can jump around like a prick, and basically it can almost feel like a Souls-like shooter at times when you're fighting these bosses, which I enjoy because I love dodging. I just like it, okay? But honestly, I do feel that this game would have been better without the survival bullshit added onto it, and the crafting mechanics also, I feel like they didn't really need to add that. They could have used their, you know, time and attention to make the other gameplay elements even better and this world feel much more interesting to explore, because it can feel a little bit empty at times. Instead of trying to focus on the survival crafting genre, I just wish they could have gone more unique with it, which they almost did, but it does hold it back slightly. But if you love that micromanagement, if you love, you know, keeping track of your status effects and all that kind of stuff, which I do as an RPG lover, but in a multiplayer game it can be rather tiresome and it just kind of takes away the fun a little bit. But luckily, like I said, it respects your time. There isn't too much grinding for resources here, and it's not super difficult where it's so rare to find food or clean water and stuff like that. But yeah, it just could have been refined a little bit better, I think. The upgrading system, that's a big positive as well. It's pretty good, nothing crazy. You just upgrade your guns and you can get some pretty cool abilities by, you know, fighting bosses and stuff like that, adding more critical chances and all that stuff. All of the usual jazz, to be honest. And the enemies don't feel too bullet spongy, which I really appreciate, because in a game like this, you are sometimes worried that the enemies are just going to soak up a ton of damage, and this will, you know, basically mean you have to grind and grind for better gear. It's not too bad, and the customization is pretty good, but the weapon choices, they could have added more. It's mostly just shooting. There is like a melee option as well. And basically there's over 100 different blueprints where you can craft these weapons, so there's quite a lot of variation. And of course, this is a looter. And of course, this is a looter shooter, so you do get the kind of rarity of items. I think it's pretty well balanced, but there can be abundance of items where it just feels like you're picking up endless trash, which I don't like. I wish it was more focused and more, you know, customized to your own player build. And that's something I will touch on. I said the, you know, gun customization is good, your character, you know, how you look and all that kind of stuff. But to be honest, this isn't an RPG. It's not trying to be an RPG. Not every game needs to be like RPG elements, but there isn't much like player agency here. Like, you know, you compared to your friend, it's not going to feel that different. Whatever it is you're playing, maybe you're using a different gun, maybe you have slightly different abilities or slightly different gear, but it's nothing crazy. This is mostly just a survival experience, and it does remind me of like a multiplayer version of Days Gone. Not that scam one, I can't remember what it's called. They have very similar names, okay? But basically, yeah, I do think that this is pretty good so far, and the vehicles actually feel pretty good as well, surprisingly. It's pretty difficult to get good driving mechanics in an open world game, especially a multiplayer one, but they did a decent job here. It's nothing crazy, but it's not terrible by any means. I just wish the landscape was more interesting because it is very barren at times. And the bosses, okay, the bosses are simply incredible. They look amazing. They do have different, you know, attack variations, different stages. Most people expect that nowadays, so it's nothing crazy. But the bosses did stand out to me as very, you know, imaginative, and they look pretty cool, and you do have to actually use some tactics. But the amount of content here, which I'll get into, is pretty insane. So like I said, the crafting could have just been better. They're trying to go for this kind of realistic approach, so it would have made more sense if the crafting was more realistic. You actually have to structure it, otherwise it's all going to collapse, similar to Valheim, and have, you know, physics built into the world. But the amount of freedom in this open world is pretty cool, I'll give it that. But I just wish the building was a little bit better, and it can look out of place at times. Maybe in the future they're going to add, you know, literal moving houses that you can just zap around in, so you'll literally have moving bases, which is pretty exciting. Not many games are doing this. But then we do get, you know, a lot of these early access survival crafting games like Nightingale, which I covered last year or whenever that game came out, and everyone thought this was going to be amazing, this was going to be the next best thing, but it released with a lot of bugs, and even though it was unique visually and it had a lot of kind of different gameplay ideas in it, it boiled down to the same thing, and it just wasn't that polished. This, I can say, is more polished, but maybe it's not going to, you know, hold your attention for long. I also like how basically when you drink contaminated stardust water or anything like that, it does actually cap your HP, so it is quite a hardcore experience, like I said, because you really do have to micromanage, which is good for people who like that survival experience, but then it kind of is a little bit at odds with its other more, you know, open world, classic, third-person looter shooter gameplay style. But still, it does a pretty good job of balancing both of them, I would say. And there is, you know, a classic dungeon mode, and you go clear it and get some loot, fight a boss, that kind of stuff. That's kind of the basic content, but then there's also these massive world events, which is really cool because you get these giant bosses that just roam the land across these different biomes, and then you can go over there and try and take them down. There's actually quite a lot of different world events, so it is going for that kind of MMO light approach, which I like. And then you have the PvP mode where you fight other players for resources and over territory. That's going to be very exciting. Obviously I didn't get to test all of this out, but I did get to test quite a lot of it. And even with the dungeons, you do get some light puzzles and stuff like that, so it's actually quite engaging, I would say, as a gameplay loop. You even get the stupid Breath of the Wild, you know, little hang glider to zip around. I mean, every game is doing that now, especially these kind of multiplayer survival games. I just, you know, it's got a unique art style, but I'm just not sure if it has enough, you know. It's good and it's polished and it's fun to play, so that's the main thing. But does it have staying power? Well, I don't know. That will be up to you to decide. Everyone's taste is different, but I'm pretty happy with the groundwork here. And yeah, there's not that many issues so far from what I've seen from the early access. And the biomes and just the world design in general could be a little bit more interesting. They've got this nice, you know, cosmic kind of horror going on, this supernatural vibe, kind of like a Stranger Things open world multiplayer game. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Control as well, but there just isn't much like personality within the environments themselves. You know, some more curated experience would have been cool, but there is a lot of content here. The combat doesn't feel bad. It's not as weighty as something like Remnant, but it is still engaging, and with multiplayer, this being a multiplayer game, I think that's what's really going to hook people in. And there's even things like survival mode where you're just facing off hordes of enemies, or Dig to Hell, which is a pretty cool mode where you have to protect basically these NPCs from being killed. And there's just so many unique creature designs. That's what I found interesting, you know, just exploring this world. The loot system is pretty good, the combat is pretty good, seeing all of these crazy enemies and bosses is pretty good. And for a multiplayer kind of light MMO experience, I think this is actually doing a pretty good job. So I just thought I would cover it today because this is the, you know, state of gaming. The media that we all love, especially on this channel, where, you know, great stories can be told. I don't think this is going to be one of them, but from a gameplay perspective, it is doing something a little bit different. And I just want to support AA because that is where innovation can be, that is where creation can be found, and that's what we need to support. Otherwise, this industry is just going to get very stale, and we need to support innovative ideas, otherwise nothing will change. And yeah, obviously this is a little bit generic, but it is still doing a few things differently, so I just thought I would talk about it today. Let me know if you're going to try it out, and if not, that's fine. But if you do, let me know if you enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day. Peace out.